Before I begin, I want everyone in this room to think about a time you were in a bad situation. Sometime in your life where everything seemed to be going wrong and there was no clear path out of it. Take a moment. Maybe this was a broken heart, maybe a dream you had to give up on, or a time when you seemingly lacked purpose in this world. I want you all to keep these moments in the back of your mind because I plan to come back to this. However, I must first take you back 8 years ago to a small town in northern India. This is me. At 11 years old, I lived in financial comfort in one of the most green regions of India. But however happy we may look in this picture, I never had a happy family. This was an environment of constant verbal, mental, and even physical abuse, where my curiosity was seemingly put in a straitjacket, and my interest in mundane topics seemed to have suddenly died. My life transitioned from school and sports to fending off unwanted media attention, trips to courtrooms, and police reports. So quickly did the dark gravity of reality hit me that I could barely hear the music that had once played in my playground, in my innocent and playful childhood. I became an expert at running from my emotions, and am still haunted sometimes by the same suicidal ideations that marked that period of my life. So at 12 years old, I found myself at a crossroad. I could submit to everything that was going on in my life and lead a life of excuses and short-term decisions to try to escape the situation, or I could push myself. I could push myself and make my life better. I distinctly remember my mom marching into my room one day like a no-nonsense army general with a strict message in the form of our ritual prayer. And she said, "Stop being so self-absorbed in your pity. Let me remind you of the prayer. Pothi badi badi shubhaya, pandit bhaya na koe. Pothi badi badi shubhaya, bhaya na pandit koe. Dhai aakar prem ke, pade su pandit hoye." Which loosely translates to, all the books of knowledge you might read, and then go ahead and impart your knowledge through science, through technology, through creativity. But mankind will never be wiser about its future unless it is coupled with a sense of love and compassion for its fellow beings. So I decided to take my mom's advice after all. I started noticing problems outside of just myself. And then I started noticing that Indian farmers were facing problems with artificial fertilizers. In that same time period, I began reading voraciously, including topics that ranged all the way from biochemistry to military strategy. And in the evening, my mind would wander to making connections between the seemingly unrelated biological warfare and political planning. As adults, we have a lot of experience to draw on, and we often take it for granted. When I was 12, I had little experience. I was using these books that I was reading to gain that experience. I was adapting. I was adapting in order to survive. To preface, I would want to share with you the scientific findings that I have observed in my life to hold true. That creative potential has much more to do with personality traits, such as openness to new ideas and curiosity, than just plain analytical intelligence. And while intelligence may be promotive of scientific creativity, artistic creativity is also related to emotional instability. In line with these scientific findings, I woke up one day and I had conceived the idea of a biofertilizer that was aimed at mitigating the same harmful effects that those artificial fertilizers were causing in India, in my country. But I wasn't sure how to act on this idea that had sprung in my mind so suddenly one morning. I was walking uncharted territory. So I pulled off another classy move, all while keeping it unconventional. I rounded up a bunch of cockroaches. Starting with the excrete of cockroaches and a bunch of stolen test tubes, I began tinkering with different formulations on small plants, much to the dismay of my gardener. Yep, I pissed a lot of people off that year. But after months of working like an undercover spy and digging deep into scientific journals to find clues, I began to see the technical difficulties slowly fade away, and the light of some of my work started to come into focus. Somewhat satisfied with what I had, I reached out to the Department of Science and Technology in India about my idea. I then found myself, at age 15, with an invite to present my research at the National Congregation, and I was awarded there by the President of India, Dr. Kalam, for my innovation. Now, this was a big award, and my mom was really proud, but I know she'll never forgive me for all the months that I spent breeding cockroaches in my washroom for my experiments. I'm sorry, Mom. Years later, I've stuck to this ideology of using my creativity to solve little and big world problems, to maybe fill in the void that my childhood left me with. In doing so, I have noticed that many people were making similarly strange connections and parallels, like I had been when I was 12. One such field devoted to drawing connections between real-world innovation and biological phenomenon is dubbed biomimicry. Now that I have taken to working in the field of biomimicry, I have made a lot of mistakes, but I have learned from them. So I would like to share with you some explicit lessons in how biomimicry can be used to solve real-world problems, as well as implicit lessons that working in this field has taught me about the creative process. Let me start by introducing you to a 13-year-old boy named Aiden. Having just learned about photosynthesis in school, Aiden went on to read about how leaves arrange themselves in a Fibonacci sequence, presumably in order to optimize energy generation from a plant. This got him thinking about arranging solar panels much like the leaves were arranged. After all, leaves were tasked with energy generation too, and this new arrangement might prove useful in much the same manner, right? Well, it is definitely true that Aiden was ahead of his time to have even thought about linking these two concepts together. But his model failed on one big account. It did not account for the shift in afternoon lighting, which resulted in a lower daily energy production than a standard array of panels. But there is a happy ending to this story. Just a year later, researchers at MIT came up with a sunflower-inspired pattern. This is what they came up with. In a desert in Spain sits this 100-meter-high pillar surrounded by rows of giant mirrors. And unlike Aiden's model that did not account for the afternoon shift, these track the sun throughout the day, and they even mimic the compact arrangement of sunflower petals to make for a more efficient way to fit more solar panels in. Well, what is my point here, you ask? While Aiden looked to trees because they were tasked with energy generation in the plant, that did not come in handy. Leaf arrangements have more complexities than just the surface phenomenon that Aiden was trying to lift and paste into his idea. So we must do this. Sunflower petals, which were actually not tasked with energy generation, was what came out to be the better design process in such a thinking. The takeaway? Form does not always translate to function. A deeper, more nuanced understanding of the problem space itself is key to the innovation process. Only then can we unleash the ideas that come through creativity. And in today's workplace, multidisciplinary teams with stark background differences can provide that same breadth and depth of information. For example, who was in the room to come up with the whole biomimetics behind sunflower arrangements and solar panels at MIT anyway? Well, the truth is, not everyone was in the room, at least not the same room anyway. Corey was a mechanical engineer at MIT. Alexander came from Germany to MIT with a chemical engineering background. And Manuel, who collaborated with them from all the way in Germany, came from the mathematics division in computational engineering science. You see, the narrative motion of ideas and people across boundaries of culture, ethnicities, and even class can leverage understanding of not just how those cultures interact with each other, but how they overlap. So just like successful ecosystems in nature thrive in areas of biological diversity, successful ideas nearly always arise from places of intellectual diversity. More recently, my team was part of the International Biomimicry Design Challenge, and we were finalists. We created a biomimetic device that looked at jellyfish and employed the same principles that they were using in fluid dynamics to come up with a more efficient energy harvesting system. I think what made all the difference in the work we did are these two lessons that I just shared with you. One, we looked at a truly unconventional approach to come up with an energy harvesting system. We looked at jellyfish, fish school swimming patterns, and heart valves to come up with an energy harvesting system. And two, I would like to share with you the makeup of the team that I was leading. This is the first team. It has since evolved. Our first team consisted of a biologist, a materials engineer, mechanical engineer, among other disciplines. Today, we have evolved to bring in a mathematician, aerospace engineers, mechanical engineers, and even economics majors. And my team works from different parts of the world. Somehow, serendipity seems to strike more often when working in such a team. And it doesn't seem to be a coincidence to me anymore. But the question still remains. Why should you care? In my experiences with loneliness, depression, suicide, coming from a broken family, I have learned how creative thinking saved my life, quite literally. It gave me a renewed purpose in life. Creative thinking has helped me build my identity, forge meaning, and invite the world to share in my joy. And you can do this too. Our cultures, people, and backgrounds may build walls around what is acceptable exploration, but it takes building and breaking those walls back down to come out strong and innovative. So the next time you think that you can't solve a problem, I want you to think that you're not stuck. You don't have to think outside the box. You are in control of the box. You can expand intellect, seek knowledge beyond your realm, and become more creative. Your intuition, as shaped by your experiences, will rise to meet you on your journey and help you solve all your problems, be it professional, business-related, or research-related. Certainly, this is not my last stop. I will keep going. I'll keep innovating for the better. Will you join me? Thank you.